There we go. So welcome everyone to the 2023 Reclaim Power event, which is a time where we come together and hear from all of the beautiful people that I've had a chance to mentor this year. And so I'm so grateful to be surrounded by such a wonderful group of lights in this world. I want to start just by welcoming everyone. And for Brennan, in case you don't know me yet, my name's Danny. And for anyone else who's joining or watches later, my name is Danny. My pronouns are she, her, or they, them. I'm a queer Indian Portuguese woman. I'm living as a guest on traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Chippewas, and Mississaugas First Nations in Northern Ontario, near a place called Algonquin Park that I'm sure everyone's more familiar with. And I started this program. It's called Reclaim Power several years ago, mostly in response to the pandemic, where a lot of folks were, kind of in a place where they didn't know what to do, how to like reimagine their businesses in a state of capitalism that was running amok as usual. And so we started this program with the intention of supporting visionaries, change makers, storytellers, reimagining capitalism, using their business as a tool to help us decolonize our ways of being and to, reframe money as a tool and as something that can potentially offer its own medicine, and how we can yield that in a way that can help heal the world instead of create more damage. And so, whenever I do these land acknowledgements, and I want to, invite all of you to also think about the land that you're on and what it means for you to be either a treaty person or a settler or a guest or however you identify, or how you position yourself in relationship to the land you're on. But whenever I reflect on this, I'm often taken to thoughts of my own ancestors, my own teachings, the lands that my family came from, that my relatives came from, questions about why they left their homelands. And this always brings me back into a state of seeing the world and what's kind of going on on so many levels, in a way where, I'm able to reflect, and that's what's encouraged in this group, is to really reflect on how we're able to not only support one another, but like help us all liberate one another, engage in this process of co-liberation, where we're not just helping, we're not just trying to be unidirectional, we're recognizing how we're all part of this process and how we can all be part of this process that allows us to really see our oneness, and to see our mutual liberation as being served by how we show up in the world. I saw this quote the other day, and it was really beautiful, and it just kind of spoke to how, when you speak up, when you align your values with your thoughts, your words, your actions, it really doesn't, it creates a space where you can then have an ethical business or an ethical approach to making money. Because so much of what we're seeing today and what we're seeing, for example, in Palestine, but also in Congo and Armenia, so many genocides, like the most horrific atrocities that you can imagine, happening in the name of greed, in the name of resource extraction. And so, it's important that we reflect on that and what it means to actually speak up in a world where these types of things are happening, and how we can build our businesses in a way that's resilient, where we can have a voice, share our voices, and not be, threatened by the powers that be, essentially, right? Where we can reclaim our own power, where we can understand our relationship to the collective in a way that helps us show up, again, creating businesses, telling stories, envisioning the world, reimagining the world, in a way that works for everyone, and that helps us to undo a lot of that oppression and to bring healing to the world. So I'm very proud of this group. We've all gone through a rigorous 9-month process of like understanding what it means to regain freedom. But I can share as much as I want to share, but I think it's more important that I allow these folks to speak for themselves. So what's going to happen today is we're going to give everyone about 5 ish minutes to share. Each of these folks has prepared a presentation. So we're going to just go through the presentations, and then there's going to be time at the end for reflections and Q&A. So I invite everybody here to take part in that and just to think about like what you've learned from each other, what you're seeing in each other's work, how we can be inspired from one another, because I think that's really important at this time. I do want to say, like, yeah, I'm so proud of each of you for the way you've showed up this year, for the way that you've committed to this process of, like coming week after week, engaging in your own growth, and watching you transform has been incredible. Watching myself transform alongside you has been incredible as well. So without further ado, we're going to have Aisha Gersaz going first. Yeah, I'm just going to let you take the floor, Aisha. I'm going to spotlight you, ask you to unmute.
Great, thanks. I will share my screen. I do have a little bit of unstable internet, so yeah, just a heads up. Okay, so sharing my screen. Oh, it says I cannot start sharing screen while the other participant is sharing.
There you go. It should be working now. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. Okay, so then I think I go into present. I don't know, does that work? Is it in presenter mode for you all?
It looks
Or like, can
good.
you see the
Is
full
anyone
screen?
else hearing a very soft volume, or can everyone hear okay?
It is on my Mac.
I'm just gonna share
Um,
the captions.
okay.
And just for everyone who's listening, you can turn on the captions at the bottom if that helps. But yeah, I think for me at least, Aisha, you're a little bit quiet.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll try to just speak louder. Oops. Okay. Hey, everybody. So my name is, and I'm currently in Bali, Indonesia right now. And then now vacation and travel. And I'm Oregon on Immigrant Island, and my family is from Turkey. So I guess my story starts with really feeling like, and what's so significant about Pittsburgh are like the three rivers, the Monongahela, the Ohio, and the Allegheny. And Pittsburgh was also like the epicenter of the steel engine, and to the point where like in the 50s it was just small out where you couldn't even see the sun, and it left this like gray wash on the whole city. Then so that was contrasted with but going to from the so advanced drink water for really abundant water. I think to be the Statue of Liberty for Halloween. So that was, I think, just like um, a, a remembering as a young person, like how much um, I appreciate through that. So I think that's kind of like the beginnings and the precipitating moments of kind of like how I became politicized as I got older. Um, so one thing I think is really like the name of my presentation is really guided by water. And I think that really every racial justice, social justice, human rights issue we're seeing today is connected by water in some way, or water shows and speaks to the injustice that's happening. So for instance, like these portraits and photos like of the past 3 years. Um, have been of Manuel funny house build tiny houses along. There's a pipeline that would really devastate some of the most pristine waterways in Treaty 6 territory in Canada. Also, like right now, with what's happening with the movement uh, or the global movement now for Palestinians, is, I mean, even just realizing that it's illegal for Palestinians to even harvest their own rainwater under Israeli rule, like speaks volumes and says so much to the occupation and the or, and imperialism and uh, like the grabbing of resources too. So, and the photo on the right is from Standing Rock, where I photographed this elder, Granny Redfeather, who as she was like shouting to police, she was saying like, you need water too, like we all need water. And so and the Standing Rock and in the movement in Standing Rock was about the Dakota Access Pipeline, which with pipelines, it's not if but when there will be a spill. So that's been like, as I look back, that's been very much like the focus of my work. And for me, upon graduating with like the recession in 2009, I just was pretty scrappy and I just wanted to cutting news and focusing on stories were about people in their communities doing um, solution oriented work or focusing on issues that like need healing and reckoning and more visibility. So through launching the Mending News and just like interviewing folks that were inspiring to me, that's how I got connected with Indigenous Environmental Network and did a video for them. And then they started to invite me out for some of the major climate mobilizations that were happening at the time, like the Climate March or the first Climate Summit and Climate Summit. Um, and that's all. Learn a lot about um, like the ways in which settler colonialism works, how all of these kind of things we're seeing today. It's just ongoing colonialism when it comes to land grabbing, when it comes to human rights abuses. So, um, so having the opportunity to work with, especially like frontline resistance movements, I was able to like really see an analysis on um, and how some of the things we thought that are in the past are still actually happening still to this day. One of the things that really moved me was being able to experience a water blessing ceremony with the late Josephine Mondaman, who walks and traverses, or during her time here on earth, she dedicated herself to raising awareness around the sacredness of water, and even traversing the whole entirety of the Great Lakes with a copper pail of water and praying for water, that there can be an understanding of its preciousness. Um, and through my time Standing Rock happened, I was working at a social media channel, age plus, and out to help out on their media team as they launched Indigenous Rising Media to share frontline stories, since the media or mainstream media narrative was so asymmetrical and slanted in such a way where Indigenous voices were not even coming to the forefront. So they launched Indigenous Rising Media, and I helped with kind of like bringing the uh, digital storytelling to their platform. And during that time that I was working with IEN at Standing Rock, that's when I started to realize also like how problematic um, uh, like the environmental movement was, or the especially like white-led um, nonprofits and environmental nonprofits, and how even in their attempts to support, they were still enacting kind of like working in relationship with Indigenous people. And so that's actually kind of what motivated me then to start working with Rainforest Action Network, a actual um or actually this um yeah, so working with Rainforest Action Network, and this way um I was able to help build partnerships with frontline Native communities to, instead of like, usually the white-led NGO way would be like banner drop, put our name and brand ourselves on everything. And instead it moved into like, how can we um, uplift um, the voices of the front lines, and work in meaningful collaboration, who are grassroots, help resource those movements, who are actually propelling like the movement power to stop pipelines, to protect water, to defend. And so uh, when it looked like when you do friendships and collaboration that moves at is organization that was invited to be able to participate in the Bringing Our Voices Together Strategy Summit, around strategizing around stopping the tar sands. And so uh, I think one of the most important things for me as a photographer is like having values where it's not about extraction and what you can take from the exchange, but how you can collaborate around shared goals, and uh, generate a relationship of reciprocity. And that's been, I guess, my MO as a photographer. And most recent project, long-term project, has been working with Native Conservancy and their Indigenous kelp initiative, which there's like rapid subsistence fish decline, and then also the environment, just through years and decades of extraction from um, uh, Alaska's government, also restore habitat, and then to also on a global level, um, because kelp can offset more carbon than even terrestrial forests. to be able to support and mitigate climate change at this time. So um, working on that project now, and yeah, always hoping for more resources or working for more resources to be able to help continue it and support other filmmakers that would be more local to continue their story and help promote them, their work. So that's everything for me. I'll pass along to the next presenter and connect with the Q&A. Thanks.
Oh, thank you so much, Aisha. I am always so in awe of everything that you do and that you are and that you bring into this world. And I just want to thank you for all your beautiful, just the way that you are, for who you are, for what you've added to this space. So I'm just going to encourage everyone to jot down some reflections that you might have after that presentation. What kind of, just for yourself, if you have a pen and paper or even on your phone or on a notepad somewhere, I invite you to just think about like what came through for you, what you're inspired by, what questions you might have. And we will make space for that at the end, and we can share any reflections that we've had during these sessions as well. And I think this is a great practice, this act of reflecting and taking something in a way where you can absorb it, and then, there can be some transference. Yeah, or it's something that you want to look deeper into that maybe intrigued you. Yeah, and we're all very open here, so ask anything. All right, so we're gonna go from Aisha to now Chrissy. I'm just gonna spotlight you. And
cool. Can you hear my audio? Okay.
Yeah, definitely can. Welcome to the floor, Chrissy. Very excited to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you, Aisha. All right, let me get my screen shared here. All right. So I'm Chrissy Martinez, and I'm joining you from the ancestral lands of the Timucua and Seminole Nations. Everything that was overwhelming me after the accident started to slip away as soon as my feet touched the spring water. As I dipped below the surface, the pain, anxiety, and fear took a break. And for a moment, I felt like a kid again, looking into a kaleidoscope, or up into the night sky at the pure magic that was surrounding me. Do you remember what it's like looking into a kaleidoscope or up into the night sky on a really clear night? That's how I feel when I look into the springs. I'm a photographer, filmmaker, and visual storyteller. And I've always had a deep love for animals. Being outside near the water is where I feel most connected and free. It was the late 70s and the lights were dim. Led Zeppelin was playing on the record player as my anxious and courageous 17-year-old mom was going into labor with no medication and far from her family that she grew up with in the US. My sister and uncle stepped out to take a walk on the warm sandy beach in Caracas, Venezuela. The temperature in the room was warm and the lights were dim. Echoes from the ocean blended with my mom's breaths and the faint sounds of Led Zeppelin. A few songs into the album, I arrived in the bag. When my dad opened it, I smiled and took in my first breaths filled with ocean air, and that is where my love for water and music began. This is me and my granny Mireya in Venezuela on the street that we lived on with her. We both share the first name Marcela, and we lived here with her until I was 3 years old, and we moved back to the US. I remember being in 3rd grade and saving up pennies for months that I would find on the ground or digging through the couch so that I could have money to spend at my first trip to SeaWorld. My parents would have happily given me the money if I had asked. I was there, finally at SeaWorld, nervously waiting to count out all of my pennies that were weighing down my shorts. When the chaperone noticed, she decided to pay for my ice cream. I can't remember how many pennies that I counted out before she intervened, but I remember the tall counter and the discomfort in the air. We were all standing by the small fishbowl that barely contained Shamu's body when she went up into the air very high and dove down as the crowd screamed with joy and a huge wave of water cascaded over the edge of her little fishbowl, knocking the ice cream out of my hands after only having just a few licks. I looked around feeling very thirsty and watching the crowd laugh and sipping on their tall fountain drinks, while I'm staring down at the hot concrete that was devouring the rest of my ice cream. My thirst increased as the steam waves rose up from the concrete. Not knowing at the time that I had more in common with Shamu than anyone in that park, not really sure where I belonged, an illegal alien. Just as Shamu had to live in but didn't fit in that little glass bowl that our dollars and desire to keep nature up close kept her in, I was quiet and didn't know yet how to use my voice, and surrounded by happy, loud people in a foreign-feeling land, sipping on their expensive drinks as my head slowly lowered with thirst for my melted ice cream. As Shamu swam away into another glass bowl that was too small for her. I left there thirsty, while Shamu was left there to live the rest of her last days in that bowl, making splashes for people who laughed but didn't listen to her voice, as she never had a chance to go anywhere else. I think of Shamu and all the animals that we keep in cages for our entertainment, and those who get to roam free but are forced to in contaminated waters, the manatee struggling to keep warm in the winter, wasting calories in search of nutrients to keep alive, while the people are sipping on their expensive drinks on their over-fertilized lawns, contributing to destroying the homes of the animals that they love so much. I think back to my melted ice cream and the sounds of everyone's laughter and straws sucking from styrofoam cups, and on a larger scale, how there are huge straws all over the state of Florida, sucking water from the aquifer at a deficit. Over 1,100 manatee died in Florida in 2021. Over 800 manatee died last year, even with a feeding program in place. I want to connect with people who love and care for and want better relationship with wildlife and our wild spaces because our healing is connected to each other. I want to work with people who care about the co-liberation of all beings and who not only care for the earth, but honor Indigenous voices at the forefront, with people who are just as invested in freeing whales and saving manatee as they are in freeing Palestine and stopping the genocide and all of the genocides happening across the world. We are not truly free until every being is free. I want to work with people who are ready to bend time and reshape reality so that the manatee can swim and eat vegetation that is green and vibrant and no longer have to choose between freezing to death and staying warm in the winter. I want to live in a world where people care so much that the springs that have died and stopped flowing and reverse flow start flowing again. If you feel inspired by my work and want to connect, here are some of my offerings. I have many stories in the works that I'm looking for different editors and publishers to submit stuff to. Here are some stories I've created. I also have prints available and also offer larger than life wall murals featuring my photographs that can be installed by my team in your office or your home. And you can also join me in a spring where we can co-create the image of your dreams. And here is how you can connect with me. I look forward to connecting, and I'm gonna stop my share here.
Amazing. First of all, beautiful presentation. Christy is one of these people who can just like, she's like they're like a nature whisperer, like just go out into the bush for a few hours and like things just come. And it's pretty incredible to witness like every week, like the different things that you're able to see. And yeah, Just so grateful for all that you do in the world. That was such a powerful presentation. Got me really emotional. So thank you for sharing your feelings and your thoughts.
Thank you.
So yes, again, I'm going to encourage everyone to think about what you're reflecting on, maybe what you're feeling. A lot of the times we get really cerebral, but thinking about like how that made you feel. Also dropping into your heart, and yeah. So that was a pretty powerful one. Yeah, and we'll come back to these reflections in just a little bit. Thank you so much, Chrissy. So next we're gonna go to Jacob. Jacob, I'm going to.
Sorry, 1 second here. Okay, hello everyone. So my name is Jacob. I'm currently located on unceded Musqueam territory in Vancouver. So I start here with this slide and this photo on the road to ceremony, because this has really been a very large theme over the past year for me in framing how I shape and guide my work. So I grew up in the suburbs of Southwest Ontario. As a kid, I would spend as much time as I could in the hills, the countryside, the streams, just quietly sitting and observing. And returning to the land became quite a regular practice for me and my folks to move through life as it came. Now these are Treaty 14 lands, which is Nishnawbeg territory, and I start here because my responsibilities as a treaty person deeply influence the work that I do, which I'll talk a bit more about in this presentation. So I was a pretty quiet kid. My grandfather would take me fishing throughout the year, but I never cared too much about catching fish. I kind of preferred to just watch the seasons go by and to sit and watch the water and listen to him talk. So I preferred to observe and to make connections to things going on around me. As I grew up, I learned that my ancestors settled in Mi'kmaq territory in Newfoundland around the late 1700s, of course implicating my ancestral line in a much larger history of land dispossession and territorial extraction. Visiting Newfoundland, I learned that my ancestors would come to be miners on Bell Island, working on an iron ore mine that was one of Canada's biggest producers of metals, supporting the Allied efforts in World War II. This is an image of what those miners would look like, wearing candles to light their way through the mines under the Atlantic. And I bring this up to invite larger conversations around ancestry and what it means for my work now. So my work is largely focused on the intersections of climate crisis and settler colonialism. Last summer, I joined a group of artists and educators to Blackfoot territory, who are in relationship to a chief to witness a healing ceremony. And on the road back, an elder who was a part of our group gifted us a necklace and a jar of red cedar each, as a signal to our relationships and responsibilities. And traveling through the Rocky Mountains, drinking our morning coffee, she tells us how she's worried about my generation, because we are inheriting responsibilities that no one has gone through before, and without the elders that we need to give us perspective. And so we talk about how things are only going to get messier from here, and more complicated, more paradoxical, and more uncertain. We talk about our experiences with depression in the context of a world in crisis. And she tells me that the ones who come after us are going to need even more perspective than we need. They're going to need really good elders. And so maybe this is why we both ended up at the ceremony together. And so I continue to think about what it means to imagine a growth into eldership and how I can use my story work to do this. So at the same time, I was working and still work at an Indigenous-led health and wellness garden on Musqueam territory, where we grow, harvest, and process traditional medicines to give to community. And it's here where I engage in ethics of relationship building between Indigenous and settler society. This place teaches us how to reconnect with land, which in turn teaches us how to live in good relation, because they tell us everything's relational, and anything can be medicine when you know how to use it right. And so understanding these experiences more as invitations, I center my work around a few core themes and questions. So, as mentioned, the climate crisis is really about the ways of being we've inherited from colonial systems that separate us from the land, from all of our relations, and from the spirit and autonomy of them all. And we've forgotten how to be medicine for them. And so my main questions around the theme of turning to land are: how can restoring our relationship to land, our entangled histories and present, and to our dependencies on the violence inflicted upon it allow us to move through the climate crisis in relationally ethical ways. And this is an image that I made at that garden. Now, part of this means bearing ethical witness to both resistance and to world making, to allow our storytelling to change us as storytellers in ways that support these movements and deconstruct our own inherited habits of being, and to translate this into larger systems change. And so my engagements this past month with the Palestinian movement in Vancouver has been hugely important to shaping how I understand what it means to bear witness and to be in relationship to these communities. And this relational accountability becomes quite insular without centering direct reparations to Indigenous, Black, and Global South communities. And so for this reason, this is how I center my work is that stories need to teach us how to live in a constant state of reciprocity with the world around us, with special focus paid to historical and ongoing colonial harms. This image here was gifting tobacco prayer ties to the chief who was organizing that ceremony that we went to before we went to the feast afterwards. And so this last theme is called Towards Healing, because story work for me should be an invitation to heal. And so while on the road to that ceremony, a friend who is also an educator, sitting in the back seat, leans down of the car window and screaming into the headwind with joy and so much laughter. And so I love this photo because I think in this moment we started to realize that this is also what healing can feel like, that it can be contagious, and that it can be like a shedding of skin, surrendering to new worlds. And so the questions I ask in this theme of Towards Healing are, how do our value systems prevent us from witnessing, sensing, and relating to the world in ways that are generative, healing, and in service to a larger land metabolism? And how can we use pain and struggle as a teacher and as a guide to creating new worlds? And so all of this is kind of leading to one of the projects I'm currently working on, in which I am co-coordinating a climate media collective of photographers, filmmakers, and storytellers to support the media needs of frontline land defenders, protests, and movements that focus on decolonial and anti-capitalist systems transformation in so-called British Columbia. Right now, this is beginning by gathering a team to produce story work for and in collaboration with the Vancouver Palestinian movement and with old growth frontline land defenders on Vancouver Island. And so ultimately, by building these relationships and collaborating on story work, in my personal artistic practices, I'm asking, what can we learn of the forms of eldership needed to support the young folks who will be inheriting these movements and struggles? And how can we be self-reflexive in this process now to start moving ourselves in that direction of eldership? But yeah, so that's my presentation, and thanks for listening, folks.
Wow, thank you. My whole nervous system just relaxes whenever I am with this group. Like, I know that our future is in good hands. Thank you for that reassurance, Jacob. You're wonderful, and that was a great presentation. Again, just inviting everyone to take a moment to reflect on what came through for you in that presentation. Such interesting work, and Jacob hasn't even touched upon like all of the things that they're doing. So that was just a small piece. But yeah, please get in touch with Jacob also if what you've heard is aligned with what you're up to or something that you'd like to get involved with also. All right, thank you so much, Jacob. Next, we're gonna go to Cassandra. So I'm gonna just spotlight you, Cassandra. I'm gonna make some adjustments here. There we go.
All right, lovely.
So excited to have you. Cassandra is also just another amazing human being. There's lots of themes of healing, nature, and yeah, branding that comes with her work. But I'm excited to hear you share for yourself what you're all about.
All right, my name is Cassandra. I currently reside on Esalen, Rumsen, and Alone territories. I am so glad you're here. I'm a portrait and landscape photographer with an atmospheric style a lifelong water woman, and a somatic healing inquisitor who loves the outdoors. I really want to see what happens when we move through fear with intention and compassion. I explore the border of intention, habit, and healing through my own experience to form storied creations delivered in an approachable way to create an uplifted image and message for my clients. During this mentorship, I've been continuing my own somatic experiencing practice and integrating my need to slow down. When I move slower, I move better, and others notice and inquire. This has been the inflection point where I've found my community and inspiration. This is how I bring my whole self through my photography and my offerings. The three I'll be speaking about today move from grounded portraits to expansive branding to clairvoyant prints. I'll be starting with grounded portraits. I saw the connection between photography, people, and my desire to heal and grow when I began regularly photographing those who held the closest relationships to me. From the soil of those experiences, I harvested opportunities to give more people, as well as myself, something I had previously tried to give in so many other fruitless ways. A moment to be seen, to feel safe, to remember, all components that create space to heal. These portrait sessions are a solution to a problem I faced again and again as I and other photographers around me seemed to struggle with connecting and comforting their clients. With time and preparation, I've seen my clients open themselves up to the process and the greater experience. I created this offering so that the self-improving individual or couple can ultimately celebrate themselves. My next offering came from my own frustration as I watched brands and businesses I used personally to aid, supplement, or support my health struggled to grow. The most natural solution for me became an expansive process that gives power to the brand and meaning to those who find it. So what I like to call creative consulting is my offering for founders or brands that are ready to have their identity visually translated in an elevated way for their digital presence. Two examples that I'd like to show that I recently worked with would be Loom 6, a woman-owned sports bra company addressing the immense and entirely ignored conversation around women with larger cup sizes unable to engage in higher impact adventure sports due to unsupportive or clunky shapewear and bras. There's also Bird Valley Organics, a cannabis farm using regenerative farming techniques to create full spectrum cannabis oils for people to feel better from whole plant medicine. My final offering is intended to reflect the state of mind prioritized in my own living quarters. I envision these clairvoyant prints adorning homes and inviting in space to feel into their bodies, feel into their healing in the same way I wish I had had when I first began navigating my own healing. So if you're on a healing journey too and ready to enter a space and recognize yourself, crystallize your brand, or adorn your home or office, email me and let's jump in. Thank you.
Yay. Beautiful. Oh, your work is so beautiful. I love your, yeah. I can't wait to see the cards that you come up with too with Brennan.
Me too.
You've got some really, really awesome designs. So stoked. Thank you so much for that beautiful presentation, Cassandra. I love seeing everything coming together and just like, yeah, I love the way that you shared about what you do. So thank you. And everyone, if you can please take a few moments just to reflect. There's a lot of things that you said that I'm reflecting on. So excited to hear how that landed for other folks and what came through for you. Okay, so next we are going to go to Darshell. All right. So Darshell is an osteopath and does it in a really unique way. And we're really excited to have you, Darshell. Excited to hear all about all of the wonderful things that you do and what you're creating.
Hey everyone. Okay, let me just mm, can you see it? Oh, can you see it? Can
Yes, can.
you see it now? Okay.
Yes.
Hi everyone. My name is Darshell Diaz. My pronouns are she, her, and I am of Indo-Caribbean descent. I'm an osteopathic manual practitioner living and working as a guest on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and the Waidat nations. Do you ever catch yourself staring in the mirror, reminiscing on all of the experiences that led you to be where you are right now? And then it just hits you, the reality of how much your life has changed, how much you've changed. Well, I caught myself doing that exact same thing this morning. I remember growing up, my immediate and extended family all living together under the same roof. I was quite a rambunctious child growing up. I didn't listen, I talked back, and was always getting into trouble. My parents enrolled me into every sport imaginable in an attempt to help me learn self-control and discipline. This elicited an internal conflict within me because on the one hand, I really enjoyed playing the sports, but on the other hand, I thought my movements were awkward and disjointed and that my body didn't fit the mold of what a dancer or a gymnast or a swimmer or a soccer player should look like. I didn't look like anyone on my team, and having to constantly listen to comments like you're too slow, move faster, or you're too big was discouraging and disheartening. Thus, I quit every sport that I was in, and I retreated within myself, making myself invisible. The first time I heard the term osteopathy, I think my reaction was similar to that of most folks. Osteo, what is that? I was working as a behavioral therapist at the time, and I had a child on my caseload who had been diagnosed with autism and was nonverbal. I worked with this child for 5 years, so from ages 3 to 7. And by the time he was 7, he was able to verbally communicate his wants and his needs using full sentences. And his mom was adamant that osteopathy had played a role in helping him learn how to communicate, as well as his emotional regulation and gut health. This piqued my curiosity and it made me wonder what an osteopathic manual practitioner did. I'll never forget walking out of my first osteopathy appointment and thinking, what was that? The appointment was an hour and the practitioner just put his hands on various parts of my body. So on my head, and then he'd move his hands to my abdomen, then pelvis, and then he'd put his hands back on my head. It felt like there was a delicate dance happening between his hands and my body. And it was strange because I suddenly felt at home in a body that had always felt like a foreign entity to me. A few days after, this wave of anger, sadness, guilt, and shame encompassed me. In that moment, I realized that osteopathy was giving my body an avenue to release and navigate through all of these deep-rooted emotions and memories that I had suppressed. It gave me permission to feel, to take up space, and to begin to rediscover parts of myself that had been lost so long ago. This session was so profound to my healing journey that it made sense to take part in an aquatic osteopathy session. Having the opportunity to experience being the giver and the receiver deepened my appreciation of our relationship with water. A big part of osteopathy is this concept of the cranial sacral rhythm, and it refers to the gentle pulsations caused by the flow of our cerebral spinal fluid. It is seen as the driver of our self-healing, self-regulatory mechanism, and it holds space for our body to return back to that state of homeostasis. Working in water has shown me how multifaceted the healing journey is. It's not solely about healing our physical bodies, it's about nourishing our souls as well. And this sends a ripple effect across the collective. Now, as I stand here staring at myself in the mirror, I'm reminded of all of the different versions of me that have existed, and all of my ancestors whose stories and experiences are deeply interwoven with my own. I envision a world that is free for everyone, where each and every human, creature, and natural being feels liberated and safe, where we slow down to listen to the gentle whispers of our souls and bodies, where we're guided by a tender heart to view every being through a compassionate lens, while remembering that we are all interwoven to one another and the wisdom and sacredness of the world around us. If this resonates with you, let's connect. And that's it. Thank you for listening.
Wow, Darshell, that was absolutely beautiful. The way you told that story, and I'm so proud of you. So incredible. You've woven everything together. Visionary, storyteller, change maker. And the way you connected it to your personal story was beautiful. Yeah, so much awareness and insight there. Thank you. All right, folks. So again, please take your time to reflect on what came through for you, or what really stood out to you in that presentation. The next two presentations, both folks are here, and I'm going to be sharing videos that they've prepared. So first we'll start with Michael Parker's video. Michael's an incredible photographer. He's been raging for rights for a while now, and we're very excited to have you here. And I'm going to just share my screen. Video. Okay. Let me see. All right, so I think this is yours. Can everybody see that? Okay. Just gonna do one quick thing. Okay. Cool. So I'm going to play this video, and if it does get choppy at all, just let me know and I'll try to adjust it, but should be good to go. All right, enjoy.
America, 1964. Linda Bates is zipping down the freeway in her VW Bug. Her dad's in the passenger seat holding on. And suddenly she finds herself in a ditch. But this does not discourage her. No, as a matter of fact, she's excited. She shifts it into reverse, hits the pedals of the floor, back up the hill. Once she gets there, she shifts back into first, and zoom, she's going back down the freeway. And this is the point in which she states to her father, "I'm going to be a race car driver." And her dad, conservative grump, says, "You can't, you're a woman." To which she replies, "The car doesn't know that. And this is the woman who raised me." Rage for Rights is a series. It's for my mom. It's for her friend who died of a botched back alley abortion before Roe. It's for my son and my niece. It is for all the young women I am watching choose to be sterilized in their 20s and early 30s in order to protect themselves. It's for the 10-year-old in Ohio that was raped and had to go over state lines in order to get an abortion. It's for any woman out there who isn't able to show her rage and her fear wherever she is because she fears the retaliation that'll occur or that she might be watched. It's for the women that have had to carry babies to full term that shouldn't have had to. It's for those mothers that had to watch their babies die in their arms minutes after being born because some asshat male decided he knew what was better for her. We will continue to go on and fight for quality, not just for ourselves, but for all women in this world. We're done with the bullshit. And that's what Rage for Rights is about. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. So raw, so real. And there's a lot going on in my mind as I was listening to that and taking that in. And I'm sure that's the same for many folks here. So take some time to reflect and to, write things down. If you need to get some water, if you need to take a few breaths, I know that that was a pretty, it's got a really deep message that's, it brings up so much for so many of us. And also, yeah, just there's so many intersections of gender equality and yeah, bringing justice and equality to everyone. So thank you for being who you are. And this is one of the things that I love about this group is we each come with our own medicine. And many of us have touched upon it in our presentations. But that medicine doesn't look the same. And something I love about the forest is it reminds me of that. Whenever I look out into nature, it's like there's so many different things that are all interacting with one another, and each of them brings their own unique, special gifts, and they all work with one another. And you bring so many gifts, Michael. So I'm so thankful to have you in this group and to have you doing what you do for all of us. So thank you. All right, and then just checking the chat. Yeah, such a beautiful dedication to your mom. Right, I'm going to go now to Nyla's presentation. So Nyla comes to us from Sumatra, Indonesia. She's currently in Bali. And I'm going to play her video. Right, can everybody see? Hope you can see, and here we go.
Hi everyone, thank you very much for having me tonight. My name is Naila Azmi Del Monte and I am an indigenous Batak storyteller, land protector, activist, and a writer. Like every year, it's my honor to be in the third year of Reclaiming Power Mentorship because it's a life-changing path started, my story started and unfolding until now. I'm going to share you my presentation. Okay. So I'm going to share my story, how to protect Losar Forest through empowering women, children, and other marginalized community. I was born in the land of Sumatra, being 14 generations of my clan, but yet being refugee on our own land because of colonialism, causing us choosing our connections and knowledge about our own land. This lizard ecosystem that people call as the only place in the world that having 4 important key species coexist in the wild together. But I simply call this as my home, with wildlife living in it as my ancestor, my family. As it said, these four important key species are orangutan, rhino, tiger, and elephant, whom to be critically endangered species, but we simply call them as opung, as we believe they are representatives of our own ancestor, this rhino, orangutan, tiger, and elephant. But I didn't grow up knowing them all. I was born and living surrounded by oil palm plantations, one of the very first palm oil plantation in Sumatra, ever since the colonial period. The story of colonialism, stealing our land, committed genocide is not a new thing for us here. Never mind us to give up, even though they were killed and the rest of the family ran away to save ourselves and living undercover, pretending that we were not indigenous, forgetting who we are, forgetting our land for us to continue living. But I was always different. Stepping first time in the Loser Forest when I was 33 years old, I found home, a home that I wanted to be part of and dedicated to, even though most of the time I was forced to work as the only woman on the field, being bullied, harassed, violent, and so much more by working in conservation organization. They can kick me out from my home again. When you cannot find a safe space, that's when you create one. I found my organization the very first Reclaiming Power 2021, when I didn't know what to do. But I knew this organization name, Nuraga, means new body, giving soul, and Bhumi means the earth. Yes, it is a new body and giving soul that dedicated to the Mother of Earth as our vision. We believe women, especially indigenous women, children, and other marginalized communities such LGBTIQ+, should have safe space in this colonized conservation that is very male-dominated with bias of misogyny and patriarchy. Proudly, we initiated our program, and one of them is Sumatran Indigenous Female Rangers that are dedicated to provide safe space for women in conservation, working the frontliner of conservation programs to be leader and protector. Our goal is to secure buffer zone of looser forest from any threat of wildlife crime, illegal poaching, logging, and even preserving biodiversity around that area. Here's one of the most beautiful of our opung that we got in camera trap, our opung Blanc, or striped grandfather. We believe protecting this ancestor, representations of this our ancestor as indigenous people, are ways to protect the mega species sharing the habitat together, like our Mawas, so-called orangutan by Dutch, is also our ancestor that I believe bring us luck every time we meet them. Through this patrol, we make priority in which area having this important species roaming to protect. Through this patrol, we found so much more, from the prints, scratches, and many other things showing us that the area becoming home for so many relatives wildlife of ours. It is also a goal to raise protectors through our education center. We are not only educating 75 children about knowledge of our land and water, but we make sure that it's growing stronger as the part of life, their values every day. And we also believe that literacy is a must. We also publish our own children book story inspiring by millions of indigenous children in Indonesia who grow up without even knowing what's happening in our land, what we have in our land. This book telling their story unfold their own knowledge about their land. It is a beautiful story of decolonizing process in the children book story. Through the Sumatra Wildlife Sanctuary, that one of our program, we are not only just purchasing land and securing them from any opening, especially for more palm oil plantation, but we also bring the land back to indigenous people, mother of nature, and our wildlife relatives. This land will be always being a forest as home and extension habitat for our wildlife relative to roam, as well as protecting the water around the area. We believe in raising protectors. We believe of human role as to protect, conserve, and nurture. This reclaiming power mentorship is not only helping me finding safe space, but providing so much for so many lives already. It's been 2 years adventure. It never stops, still continue and unfolding. Not only for me, for so many indigenous people that I work with. Because conservation is our birthright. Thank you very much for listening to me. So if you have any question, please do so. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Nyla. That was absolutely beautiful. And yeah, just so we just spent 2-3 weeks together. I just got back from Sumatra, so yeah, I really miss you, and it's wild the times that we've had. So Nyla and I are also working on a Nat Geo documentary together featuring Nyla and her team. And then we're also Nyla was just featured on Jane Plus on the Apple TV series. Is it called Jane? No, Jane, sorry, on Apple TV Plus. And that's how jet lagged I am. So you can check her out on the Panthera Tigris episode towards the end. Pretty cool. So that's Nyla, and if you want to take a moment just to, write down what came through for you, what you're inspired by, what stood out for you from that presentation or from the work that Nyla does, or if you have any questions, please jot them down. And I want to thank everyone for being courageous and speaking and sharing about yourselves. It's also been really great just sharing space with all of you again, and like witnessing the transformation from each of you this year. So yeah, I'm just going to open up to any questions. If anyone has anything they want to share in the chat, any reflections that you want to share, any questions you want to ask anybody. Everyone is here whose presentation that you saw, so we can have a little chat. And if nobody wants to start, I will start. So this is to the whole group. I have a question. So what's next for you next year? Like, where are you going from here? What are you most excited about? Maybe I want to start. Maybe I'll ask specific people. Jacob, do you want to respond to that question?
Sure, I can start. Yeah, next year, part of me has no idea, mainly because I'm still a student, and as y'all know, I'm graduating in April, which opens up a lot more doors for me. But there are, yeah, a lot of big things coming. It seems like things are starting to brew more. We've been making lots of ways with the Climate Media Collective idea and building a lot of relationships. So I think the idea is kind of for the next kind of season, really just continue to nurture those, and then once I'm out of school, we can do a lot more bigger things with it, and then also just be open to whatever new opportunities come by. I'm definitely, yeah, one of the things I didn't talk about is that, as y'all know, I'm doing research as an undergrad. And so I would definitely love to be working on some documentaries, do research and directing for documentaries, and also just more media organizing. I really love just blending those two worlds together, combining the climate organizing with story work. It's like a really nice niche I like to fit in. So yeah, just opening space for those opportunities. Also just for lots of rest. I need to do some resting and some traveling, and just, yeah, be with the land a bit more. Yeah, maybe I'll pass it on to someone.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
can we do that?
You can do that. Or does anyone else want to share?
Yeah.
A question. But yeah, we can pass it on one more time.
All right, I'll pass it on to Cassandra.
Jacob and I this whole year have had this thing where I don't know if Jacob's felt it, but I've felt it, where I just like know that I don't have to even raise my hand because I know Jacob's gonna call on me. Like it's just it's the weirdest thing that I just had to finally vocalize. I for a second froze when you first asked that question because it's a big question, and then I was like, oh wait, this is why we had a work plan. This is why we have the work plan. Yeah, and I am just so excited to keep filling that out, being able to structure all the different facets of my life, makes me feel, I mean, obviously just a lot less conflicted about who I am, because like I am multidimensional, and there's a lot of different aspects about not just the way I move, but different things that I truly value and have struggled to prioritize in my life. And having an organization system that really works and helps me visually see how this is all going to integrate just makes me so excited, and feeling so truly confident and excited about having this clarity, which is truly a big thing that has been really hard to access, and has really just finally trickled down through all the teachings we've been through. So I'm just really excited to move through these offerings with people, because there's a lot of room in this work where I don't know what's going to happen after the 5th time I have a portrait session, after the 10th time, and I want to leave that room for whatever comes up. But having enough structure in place now, so people who want to engage with me know exactly how it's going to work. So I know exactly how it's going to work. Feels really exciting. And yeah, I'm just so excited to start kind of talking about myself more. Feeling a lot less nervous to pass out business cards. Be like, yeah, look at my site. I got something for you. Yeah, heck yeah, check it out. Yeah.
Oh, thanks for sharing, Cassandra. Super stoked for you, and yeah, excited to see what comes next. Does anyone else want to share on this question? Because I have one I do want to ask each of you to reflect on. Okay, reclaim power. What does it mean to each of you? And for anyone who is curious about the program, it's 9 months, and we went through so many different things together. Like we've done all kinds of things, from reading astrology charts to talking about trauma of money, to money as medicine, to what would it look like to have $100,000, a $100,000 client, like just imagining and like reimagining and sharing. So we've been through a lot together. So what does this mean to you now, especially as you reflect maybe on like the first day of this year together? Those first few activities we did and all of that. What does it mean to you now? Reclaim power. I'm going to pass it to Aisha first, and then you can pass it on.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's been a process of deep reflection, and through kind of lean into that even more, and reaffirming your or I guess like for me, reaffirming my direction as a photographer, and like having some more tools to navigate that direction. And I think through the processes of presenting and putting decks together, or like kind of invoking certain questions, that it helps to have a renewed focus. Thanks.
And who would you like to pass it on to?
Okay, got it. I will pass it to Chris.
Thank you, Aisha. It's a good question, because it's something that I feel even every day, little moments keep getting revealed to me of what it is on every level, from noticing like where my energy is going, whether it's keeping track of like, where is my time, where am I putting my energy, is it going into my dreams, am I just getting lost out there? And it's really helping me be more aware of, like, more focused on where I want to put my energy and my time, more attention to where do I want my finances. And on the deepest level, it's been, I would say, the hugest, and getting comfortable with my voice and multiple arenas. Like in the story I shared earlier, and this is what helps me anytime I need to speak or share. I remember at that age, I was afraid to say, when the teachers would say people's names and you have to say that you're here, I could barely say here when the teacher would ask. I like, my voice would come out all kind of like really crazy sounding, which then reinforced like people making fun of me and this whole thing. And so it is really just getting more comfortable with my voice, and in situations around like feeling like I'm allowed to have a voice also is another huge piece. So I could probably go on way too long, so I'm gonna leave it there for now, and I will pass it to Darshell.
Yeah, thank you. And that's huge. Like, just being able to feel like we're consequential, which I think is a huge piece of this entire, I don't know, program, project, evolution, whatever we want to call it. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. I think it's huge to feel like you can actually like feel that kind of power, where your voice matters and, needs to be heard, like we're all here to be fully ourselves. I truly believe that. And yeah, so thank you for that. All right. Next.
Thank you, Chrissy. I just want to say I loved all of your presentations. They were phenomenal. That's a big question. Yeah, this this mentorship has allowed for a lot of like deep reflection, a lot of growth, a lot of unlearning and relearning, sitting with very like uncomfortable feelings, asking a lot of like deep questions. Um, uh, it's really like helped me, I guess, peel back all the layers or all the things that weren't me, and to figure out like my values and what aligns with who I am, and feeling strong enough to stand on those things, and not feel like I have to I don't know, conform with the norm in order to be accepted. Um, I feel more confident showing up in spaces where originally like I wouldn't go, because again I felt like I didn't have like, I guess, anything to contribute. But yeah, this has been a very like powerful journey, and I can't wait to just kind of go back and like reflect and sit with like everything that we've done for these past 9 months. So thank you. And I'll pass it on to Michael.
Thanks. My cats are very upset at me now that I'm back home. So I apologize for all the cattails. I think before I answer you need to understand, I make a concerted effort to mentor with people throughout my life on specific areas that I need to, or I feel that I need to, I want to improve on. And this has by far been like the best experience. All I have to say is replicate it and send it worldwide. It gives me the greatest hope and faith for those of that are going to have to deal with all the crap my generation and the generations before me left you. And I just feel very fortunate to be here. And I appreciate greatly the space that you have created in. It's amazing. It's amazing. And it's honestly way cheaper than therapy and way more effective than therapy. Like, worth every penny. So I will say, let's see, Chrissy, you're next.
Oh my gosh, that was like the highest praise. Sorry. Thank you. I love you. Aw. Christy's already gone, but I can pass it on to who hasn't gone. Oh my gosh, my brain. Cassandra. Cassandra?
I had a feeling you were going to ask that question. I think it's very like natural to be able to vocalize that, and I'm glad we have the opportunity to. Because I was thinking about it a lot and how I would answer. And it went in a lot of different directions, but there is definitely this common string of when I think back to the first time that I even filled out the application, I believe there was a question that it like specifically said like what, or it was like two questions. It was like, what do you want to get out of this? And like, why do you, I think it was also like, why do you think this is for you? And even though I don't remember my answers, I knew at the time that I just needed something that was going to keep me accountable. Which has been a challenge going freelance and feeling this forced malleability as I hop from one thing and try to fit in 4 other things. And there's been a lot of I guess habits or like deprioritization that's come from that I was seeing that I was just unhappy with. And I also knew I needed I also remember at the time, I had no idea like who else I could talk to. I didn't know anybody else really in the area besides the photographers I had been working with just to gain experience and doing all the weddings, that I knew I didn't want to keep doing. Even though I appreciated them, it was just not the step I wanted to stay at. And oh man, yeah, it's really hitting me. I just, the last few months alone, the abundance, like real, true abundance of community that has surfaced in this area that I didn't think would ever even exist in the area that I'm in is suddenly so encouraging and inspiring. And it just really felt there's a lot of things that are not related to what happened here, but I feel like the energy and routine and abundance through this program, I was really trying to continuously integrate and transmute. And however things aligned, it's been very magnetizing. And now, now I literally have one of my closest friends in the area. He's watching me present right now. I'm so thankful for you, Brennan. We're working on a project together. I have this Rolodex of creatives that I can reach out to and know that I can talk to, including all of you. This vast network. It just feels like it's been this slow process of like rewiring certain neurons. Like all the things were there, but the water was just so murky. And things are getting a lot more settled now. And because of the amazing workbook that we started out the year with, there's like all these tools for like when there's splashes that come back through and waves. So there's something pithy in there to grab for what reclaim power means to me. That isn't just the 2 words that I reclaimed my power, but that is very much what happens. It's actionable, it's approachable, it's doable. It's Danny. It's yeah, thank you so much, Danny, for always keeping it real. Yeah, need you.
People in the world, my goodness. Like, and by the way, it's like everyone here who created the energy. So it really is. And everyone here generated so much knowledge and wisdom that we all got to share. So that's been a beautiful thing. Thank you so much, Cassandra. That's incredibly sweet. Do you want to pass it on to Nyla or Jacob?
Oh, toss up. Give it back to Jacob. He calls on me all the time. I'm calling them.
Oh man, so many questions. And we'll just see which one comes out as I start talking. I think, oh man, when I think back to a year ago, oh my goodness, feels like a world away. Yeah, things have changed so much and so fast within this program, but also just like life. And I think like a lot of the work I've been able to do has purely come from like relationships that I've had. That's something that I've been trying to keep very core to my work, at least right now, is just like only working through relationships, like pretty exclusively, just from the people that I meet. And I think even how kind of the CMC idea is picking up a little bit now. Like that's really just because I met some people who were doing some amazing organizing and really liked the idea. And we're like, why keep going? Like, why'd you stop? Like let's do it, and connected me to folks. And so I guess in that way, I don't know, that idea of like reclaiming power is almost part of that is almost like surrendering to that idea of just working through the larger movements. Like it's expansive, yeah. There's so many other things to talk about. I think that idea of just like sticking with it, like, oh man, and just working through all the stuff that comes up, but like not letting it kind of take you away from that larger goal, which is like why connecting to those larger movements is so important for me. And just letting people show up however they need to, and like things will happen as they need to, has been a huge one for me. And I think definitely a learning from this program and from Danny as well, the way you model that. And yeah, giving people the space to like work through things as they need to, is just the most authentic way that it happens. So yeah, I don't know. Those are my reflections on reclaiming power. Yeah, I think that's it. I think I'm the last one.
No, we got Nyla after you,
We
but
got
thank
Nyla. Oh yeah, sorry. My brain is tired.
all good. It's all
Nyla.
good. So if anyone has any other questions, think about them now because we're gonna be closing the space soon. But Nyla, I want to give you some space to reflect as well. And yeah, I know it's yeah, such a contrived question, but I love hearing your reflections. Thank you. Nyla.
Well, yeah, thank you. So reflection, reclaiming power, as I already told in my previous presentation, is pretty much a journey, not only a mentorship, but also a journey for me to unfold my story. 3 years ago, I didn't know where to start. I just experienced the most horrible experience related to sexual harassment related on my work in conservation. So I didn't know what to do. I thought that my dream to work in conservation was over, but then, reclaiming power bring me back to the journey to reclaim myself and my true power in general. It's like seeing myself through the other lenses that I thought back then. I thought that I didn't know what to do. I didn't, like just being a really vulnerable. But then, like throughout the way, seeing the lens of people, of seeing me, to understand my power from different perspective. And I finally can see myself there, and I can finally see, like, and reclaim my power, and to get the story unfold to the state that I am right now. Not only I have my own organizations, but I have been benefiting to a lot of women and the LGBTIQ plus community and indigenous community and children that I work here. It's just mind blowing. I started by saying to Danny, I just want to work in conservation. Like that's pretty much my intentions back then. And I didn't know how, because all of the ugly situations back then. And then like I not only I provide my own way to be able to work in conservations, but also provide alternative livelihoods, educations, continued values, and even, like continuing the legacy for the future. So it's pretty much how, like how my life changed, how each of the story also part of me reclaiming myself, my power. So it's pretty much a life-changing experience for me. So reclaiming power, it's what changed my life. It's where I found myself even stronger, learn and unlearn every day, see from the other lenses, and just keep growing.
Wow, beautifully said, Nyla. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. So beautiful. And your presentation was wonderful. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Getting to witness your project on the ground is just like, yeah, it is mind blowing. It's incredible what can happen with a seed of an idea when we nurture them. So does anyone else have any questions, thoughts, reflections that they want to share before we close out the space? Feel free to also share in the chat if that feels more comfortable for you. I just want to say, yeah, I'm so incredibly proud of each of us, again, for showing up, for committing to this process, for being there for one another. I think many of you, again, touched upon this, but this idea of reciprocity, of building community, of, really like trying to understand what it actually is to be in relationship with one another. What does it look like to show up in integrity to our values? This is a space for that, and for seeing in practice what that can look like, because we're reimagining worlds that you know don't necessarily exist, you know, so we're creating them every day. And it's a courageous and revolutionary act to do that. So just know that each and every single one of you is a revolutionary, and you're changing the world. And if you've been sharing this space with us, I'm sure you are too, because that's the kind of energy this attracts. So keep doing you and being who you are. And yeah, my biggest message, I think, again, like what came through to me in the forest with Nyla recently was, you know, just be yourself, be like the fullest version of you that you can be, and know that, you know, no two of us are alike. We're going to bring completely different gifts, different medicines to the table, and we are all consequential, and we all are needed in this this garment, this weaving of this garment that we're creating. So that's what I want to share. I am very excited to see all of you next week for our official closing ceremonies. And yeah, does anyone else have anything they want to share before we close for today? Congratulations to all of you. You did so beautifully. And yeah, if anyone wants to put their Instagrams or anything into the chat now, please do, so that everyone can stay in touch. Otherwise you can Google pretty much everyone here. So I'll just stop the recording.